Good evening, ladies and girls, future ladies. It's really nice to get to know the landscape here. And I understand that this is a wonderful school, and Rebbetzin Feige does wonderful work here. So I commend you on all that and wish you continued Hatzlacha. So all of us know now that we are Erev Hanukkah, and this is, this celebration that's coming up. Very exciting for us to be in Eretz Yisrael for Hanukkah is especially wonderful. So I wanted to talk about, of course, we know that the Hanukkah Lech, what Hanukkah in general, Lech and flame symbolizes. We're told that Ner Hashem Nishmas Ha'adam, that it really speaks to the neshama of every Yid, of every Jew, and especially here when we talk about a school, when we talk about the flames, and really what we need to talk about is these flames for the mothers that are here, the flames that are entrusted into our care, and for the young ladies, the flames that will eventually be entrusted to your care. It's never too early to start talking about what the responsibilities of a Jewish home and of a Jewish mother are. And that's in an effort that Emet Hashem, when we do get those flames, that will be the flames that the Rebbeinu Shalom entrusts to us, that we can do the best we can with those flames. So I wanted to start by telling you a story about a Hasidic great who was called Rebbetzin of Rimmenov. There was a Shiniverdov who lived later than Rebbetzin. He was also a big, great tzaddik, and he was going out on the road in the wagon together with his gabbai, and he wanted to smoke a cigar. At that time, they didn't know the dangers of smoking as yet, I suppose, and the cigar wasn't as lethal as cigarettes. Even though I see in Eretz Yisrael, people don't pay attention to those things. But in any case, so the Rebbe, this Shinaburu, wanted to have a smoke, and he gave his gabbai the cigar and asked him if he would light it. So the gabbai, struck the flint in an effort to get a flame, and the wind was such out there that it kept blowing out. And he tried once, and he tried a second time, and a third time, to no avail. It didn't work. So the Rebbe, this Shinabadov, said to him, you know what? Give it to me. Give it to me, and I'll do it. And first attempt, he struck the flint, and it was he was able to light the cigar. And the gabbai said to him, wow, this is a miracle. You're performing most of miracles. He said to him, calm down. Don't jump to any conclusions here. This is no miracle. He says the one that really was able to do miracles was my Rebbe, who was Rebbetzin of Rimmenov. He said Rebbetzin of Rimmenov, he was known to take in Shabbos very early. He started with the early plak, by the plak on Mincha, hours before everybody else took in Shabbos. At the earliest moment that it was okay to do it. It was still light outside. So he took in Shabbos, and the candles were lit, and all of a sudden this huge storm broke out, and the house was shaking, and all the windows were rattling, and it was so strong, it was so fierce a storm, that it blew out a window. And the gabbai said to him, Rebbe, for me it's not Shabbos yet. I still have hours till Shabbos. I'll run to the town and I'll get to a person who can put in a new window. And the Rebbe Mendele said to him, no, by me it's Shabbos, in my home it's Shabbos, I'm not having anybody put in a new window. Just give me a second. And he stuck his head out the window, and he turned his head in one direction, and he turned his head in the other direction, and he said to the Gabbai, don't worry, the winds will not touch my candles. And sure enough, the storm was raging on the outside, but the candles didn't even flicker. So this Yeshina Baruch says to his Gabbai, he says, I'm not able to do what the Mendele was able to do. He was able to get the raging winds to subside and not touch his candles. He says, but what I am able to do is cup my hand around the flame and protect it so it doesn't go out. And that's what you saw me do. That's the best that I can do. And the point of the story is that given the Avira in our time, there's so many winds that are raging out there. So many, the culture today is so toxic. So many things that we have to contend with, whether it's the media, whether it's social media, whether it's all the things that are so compelling and so luring and so enticing and so seductive. Those are the winds that are raging out there. And we're not in a position to look out there and to say, as Mendele was, winds stop raging. We're not able to do that. But what we could try to do is cup our hands around the flames that are entrusted into our care, our precious children, our friends, all of those that we have any influence on. We can cup our hands around these people and we can try to keep them safe, to keep those flames safe. Especially now when we're going to celebrate Hanukkah and the celebration of the lights. So the lights, that the menorah that we light is of course beautiful, commemorative of all the miracles and miracles in our lives. But the greatest miracle that we can achieve is being able to preserve and to protect the flames in our life. So that's the avoda of Hanukkah. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it is, what parents basically can do for children, and by extension, we can do for each other in a way. So there was a social commentator who identified some things that perhaps he asked the question, do good homes produce good children? I don't know, maybe you girls want to comment on that. Do good homes produce good children? What do you think? Is it good enough? Is it enough to have a good home? Do you think children from a good home will be good children? No. Okay, tell me why.
It obviously adds to the child, but it's not everything. The child also has to want to be good.
The child also has to want to be good. So it's not just if you have good parents, it's a good home, it's not enough. The child has to want to be good. And why wouldn't a child want to be good? I mean, what's the reason a child would not want to be as good as the parents? Why would you say?
Social pressure or...
Social pressure.
His nature.
And what?
Somebody who's born with his personality or his nature.
Okay, very good. Okay, some are born with challenging natures, you're saying? And so you have to want to comply with what's going on in the home. Okay, very good. Anybody else? You're not being marked. There are no wrong answers. Any other thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry?
Environment.
Environment. Okay, that's what she said. Social pressure. The environment. That's right. Okay, so he says that it's not enough, that just having good parents is not enough. What do we mean by good parents? They're good, decent people. So we imagine that children growing up with good, decent people, that it's going to be sufficient. But he says it's not sufficient. He says because there are some things that parents, the messages that parents give children, that are not great messages. And some of them would be, he said he did a kind of an exercise, a study. And maybe that's a good study. Maybe let me ask you. He asked children, he said grown children, you know, people who had already moved on beyond their homes, or youngsters, children of all age. He said to them, what would your children, your parents have preferred? That you be smart, successful, and happy, or that you be good? What would they have preferred? Would they have preferred that you be smart, that you be successful, that you be happy, or that you be good? Happy? Okay. All right. Anybody else? You're saying good? You're saying good. Somebody here is voting for good. Okay. So he says that most of them, he said he got responses. He actually had a radio show. And people called in, and almost without exception, they said that their parents would have preferred that they be happy and successful and smart rather than good. Good was at the bottom of the list. And this is why he's saying that good parents don't necessarily raise good children. He said, so if parents, and he said the way this manifests itself is if children came home, and maybe you can weigh in on this, would your parents be more upset if you came home with a bad mark? Or if you came home and told them that there was a child that needed your assistance and that needed a little time from you and you didn't give it? What would your parents be more upset about? The bad mark or the fact that you didn't reach out to somebody, a friend of yours?
The fact they couldn't reach out.
Yes? Okay, very good. Okay, he's got one parent that's doing it right. The fact that you know, that she didn't reach out, her parent would be more upset about that. So even if you got a bad mark, parents would not be as upset as if you weren't nice to somebody. They would be more upset if you weren't nice. What? The midos. Midos is very important. Okay. Now he talked about the fact that there are some parents who would not be, if there was an opportunity to get into a very prestigious school, and the youngster came home and said that they had to bend the rules a little bit, maybe do a little bit of cheating, maybe find out from another friend what was on the test or whatever, that some parents wouldn't be so upset if they did that, if it meant they're getting into Brisk, Panovich, I don't know, what are the prestigious girls' schools? BJJ, I don't know if that's today's, that's the, I don't know, whichever one. Today there's so many seminaries I can't keep track. But whatever it is, the top of the line seminary, if it took just doing a little something, you know, not so kosher, that would a parent be upset about that? His conclusions was that they would not, so long as their child managed to get into that school. I hope that's not the situation here. So he said that it's much easier to raise a good student than it is to raise a good person. A good student is easier to raise than a good person. So the fact he says that we expect that good people will raise good children, he says is not a given. He says it takes a lot of hard work for parents to raise a good child. It's not just being good themselves doesn't automatically guarantee that they will have good children. He says it's very similar to learning how to play an instrument, a violin, a piano, whatever. You don't expect for it to come naturally. And there's a lot of training, a lot of work that goes into it maybe to do it. He says it's no different with raising a good child. Now some of the other points that he makes are very good points. He says that many parents overemphasize feelings rather than behavior. So, and this is, some parents are very psychologically astute, and they come from these new schools of, modern psychology, where they'll walk over to their child who's just bullied another child, and they'll say to their child, "Oh, what's the matter, honey? Is something bothering you?" Understanding or thinking that in order to bully a child, it has to do with the fact that there is something, you're not feeling okay about some situation. So they'll walk over and they'll say to John, "Oh, honey, what's bothering you?" And he says, that may be good for the parents, and may be good for maybe the grandparents, but for the child who's getting bullied and the rest of the world, nobody really gives a darn if this child is having a bad day. It's the behavior that counts. It's not the feeling that counts. The child's feeling out of sorts, too bad. If you're feeling out of sorts, it doesn't justify or give you permission to be insensitive to somebody else. And of course, I'm sure that all of you deal with it at times, where you walk in, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you're having a bad hair day, or whatever, or your sibling got to the bathroom before you did, and you're really upset about that, and you come to school, and the first friend that meets you at the door, you hit him over the head, or for no particular reason. They didn't do anything to you, but maybe somebody, your parents, if they were there, would say, "Honey, what's the matter with you, honey?" Doesn't really make a difference. He says the important thing is the behavior. Nobody has a right to do that, no matter how out of sorts they're feeling. We are responsible first and foremost for the behavior that we, that we show. Okay, so the other thing he talks about is also that today there's an overemphasis on self-esteem. We know it's very important to foster self-esteem. We all want to feel good about ourselves, and parents can certainly help us feel good about ourselves, and certainly part of parenting is to do that. But he says that there's a psychologist who did a study, and the study, what he proposes is that more than anything else, that parents need to give the most important lessons they need to give their children. It's not things that foster self-esteem, but that which fosters self-control. And he coined the phrase that we have to give them, in addition to giving those we love vitamin C, we also have to give them vitamin N. N meaning no. Being able to say, okay, I love you very much, and but the answer is no. That this is very, very important to be able to say no. One of the most important things is establishing a higher code. Understanding that we have a Rebbetzin Feige, and we have to give a din l'chesed to the Rebbetzin Feige, and we have to abide by that which the Rebbetzin Feige wants. He in particular said that he was very, very excited when he asked his son. They were at the time, at one point there were riots in California, and he asked his son, I know he was a youngster, maybe of 10 years old, he said to him, "If you had a chance to go looting with all the looters and nobody would catch you, You can go steal from the stores, and guaranteed nobody's going to catch you. Would you walk into the store and steal? And, you know, and I said to him, be honest. Nobody was ever going to catch you. Hey, and go help yourself to something in the store. And his son said no. And he said to him, why? And he half expected, I mean, what would you say, girls? If somebody asked you that question, why? I assume none of you would do it, right? Why would you not do it?
Because I wouldn't want someone to do the same to me.
You wouldn't want somebody to do the same thing to you. You wouldn't want somebody to come and to whatever, your territory and steal from you. So, okay, good point. What else?
So that feeling afterwards.
The what?
The feeling afterwards, like guilt.
The feeling of guilt afterwards, okay. Why would you feel guilty afterwards?
It's not the right thing to do.
Because you're not allowed to do it. Why? What? Okay, it says in the Torah that you're not allowed to do it. So he said he half expected his son to say, because I don't think it's right. And he said that would have distressed him. Because if it's dependent on the feelings that we have in the moment, that I don't feel it's right, then another time I might feel it's right. If I'm the one that decides what's right and what's not right, that could change. But his son said to him, because it says so in Daseres Adibros, you're not allowed to steal. He says he was very relieved. So now, how do we instill these values? Now, some of this is a little X-rated for you girls, and I don't know if I should I talk about it? Okay, so I'll tell you what it is. Okay, so this is the story. There is a wonderful psychologist in Chicago who's a neighbor of ours, and he came. He spoke in Milwaukee. It's okay, you don't have to leave. I'm not gonna spook you out. You can sit. Not the kind of X-rated you think. Okay. So this Dr. Loeb, who's a wonderful tzaddik of a young man, but also a psychologist, and deals a lot with teenagers. So he came to speak on one occasion to the parents in Milwaukee, and he talked about the most, I guess the most prevalent question that, or issue that parents bring their teenagers in to see him. And then there is the issue that, the most burning issue. What do you think that issue is? If parents brought you into a psychologist, what would the issue be? You can venture a guess. Again, no wrong answers. What do you think?
Heart disorder, a mental disorder.
What?
A mental disorder.
A medical disorder? No,
Not
either.
medical, mental.
A mental disorder. A mental disorder. No, he's a psychologist, and they would go to a psychiatrist for that. Probably.
Rebelliousness.
What?
Rebelliousness.
Rebelliousness. Okay, rebelliousness based because of what?
Technology.
Technology. Okay, he gets issues of technology. But what's the most difficult situation today with young people and their parents? What? I can't hear you. Distance? Distance? But what causes that distance?
Social pressure?
Social pressure? Okay, that's not between parents and children. What's the most difficult thing? Okay, so I'll tell you what it is. They come in, for the most part, he says, parents come in with the issue of chutzpah. My children are chutzpahdik. My children don't have the requisite reverence that they should have towards parents. You know, they say things that are so inappropriate, they lash out, they react to what they're told to do with such huge chutzpah. And this is the part that I want you to remember when you get married, okay? And so Dr. Loeb says to them, he listens to the young people, asks the parents to go out when he's listening to them, then calls, so the young people say to him, okay, Dr. Lowe, there's a question I want you to ask our parents. Ask our parents how they speak to each other. How do they speak to each other? Is it a respectful relationship? Or is it a chutzpahdik relationship between them? And if it is, then what can they expect from us? So the important thing is that when you get to be in that position, you need to know that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, that you need to model the behavior that you want to see. We want children to be respectful, then we have to be respectful to each other. We have to be respectful to each other, we have to be respectful to our friend, to friends. Adults have to be friends. There has to be, children have to see adults being respectful, respecting other human beings. And when children see that, there's a much better chance that children will not be chutzpahdik, that they too will be respectful. So modeling behavior is a very, very important thing. And I have a little thing that I had seen that I love, and I've read it to so many times, but it's worth repeating if you've heard it. And it's entitled, When You Thought I Wasn't Looking. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw you hang my first painting on the refrigerator, and I wanted to paint another one. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw you make my favorite cake just for me, and knew that little things are special things. When you thought I wasn't looking, I heard you say a tefillah, and believed there is a God that I could talk to. When you thought I wasn't looking, I felt you kiss me goodnight, and I felt loved. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw tears come from your eyes, and I learned that sometimes things hurt, and it's all right to cry. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw that you cared, and I wanted to be everything that I could be. When you thought I wasn't looking, I looked, and wanted to say thanks for all the things I saw when you thought I wasn't looking. So it's very important that children are always looking. I'm sure as you can all testify. You're watching carefully, and when you create homes of your own, be aware of that children are always looking. Again, I don't want to assault parents here, but there's also, today most mothers work outside the home. The thing that he takes to task, and he isn't like, he's from, but he's not from, Haredi, let's say, but very insightful. And he talks about the myth of quality time. This is, you hear that from a lot of women, maybe mostly from feminists, who want to go out there in the public, in the world out there, and be equal to their male counterparts, work out there. And they say, you know what, the important thing is, as far as my children are concerned, my children are going to be fine, because I will give them quality time. And he says that's the biggest myth. He says that there's no way that we can be superwomen, that we can do it all. You know, there's a price to be paid for everything. And if women don't make the home the priority, whether it's for the children, whether it's for a husband, something is going to give. It's a trade-off. And he says, what is the meaning of quality time? He said, everybody knows with kids that there has to be a lot of quantity time before you can have quality time. You can't schedule with children, you can't say, okay, now let's sit down, quality time, the time has come for quality time, and that to expect that kids will necessarily open up during that time. and you know, and share whatever it is that they want to share. So he says that it's a real myth. He says that you know, that again, that you have to spend a lot of you know, a lot of non-quality time to arrive at this quality time. And the point being that if work comes first, now of course, today almost every woman works either inside the house, outside the house, works at a job that is outside of her family. But if it's not a priority in her life, then what she brings, the energy she brings to her family, is leftovers. It's not the main meal, it's the leftovers. And the family should never be getting leftovers. The children, family, husband, should always be a priority in one's life. And here too, I'll read you a little piece that I really like. It's entitled, "I Wasn't in a Hurry." I came rushing through our dining room in my best suit, focused on getting ready for an evening meeting. Chani, my 4-year-old, was dancing to one of her favorite oldies. So I'm going to know what it is, but anyway, I was in a hurry, on the verge of being late, yet a small voice inside of me said, "Stop." So I stopped and looked at her. I reached out, grabbed her hand, and spun her around. My 7-year-old Chayala came into our orbit, and I grabbed her too. The three of us did a wild Lebedika dance around the dining room table and into the living room. We were laughing, we were spinning. Could the neighbors see the lunacy through the windows? It didn't matter. The song ended with a dramatic flourish, and our dance finished with it. I patted them on their bottoms and sent them to take their baths. They went up the stairs, gasping for breath, their giggles bouncing off the walls. I went back to business. I was bent over, shoving papers into my briefcase, when I overheard my youngest say to her sister, "Chayala, isn't Mommy the bestest one?" I froze. How close I had come to hurrying through life, missing that moment. My mind went to the awards and diplomas that covered the walls of my office. No award, no achievement I have ever earned can match this. Isn't Mommy the bestest one? My child said that at age 4. I don't expect her to say it at age 14. Girls go home and say it. But at age 40, at age should be 90, if she bends down over the pine box to say goodbye to the cast-off container of my soul, I want her to say it then. Isn't Mommy the bestest one? It doesn't fit on my resume, but I want it on my tombstone. So, being mindful of priorities, knowing what's most important, what's should be on the top of the list, and what's, you know, of less importance. I had a woman come see me here in Beit Shemesh, Ramat Beit Shemesh, and she was, I met so many extraordinary people here. And when they shared their stories, I'm just awestruck by the resilience that people have to deal with situations that are much less than ideal. So this woman told me that she had a whole story, but I knew her from way back when, maybe 30 years ago, and in the States. And I remembered, I recognized the name, and remembered that she was the daughter of one of the wealthiest people in that community. And then I had heard that she had some family issues. In any case, she walked in, and she was like exuding light. It was just such a pleasure to look at her. And I said to her, you know, we'll call her Esther, not her real name, Esther. How you doing? So she says, "Oh, I'm great, I'm just fine." So I said to her, what's happened to you over the years? So she said, you know, unfortunately, my parents gave us our Yerushas when they were alive, and due to unforeseen circumstances, I lost all the money, no money. And she said, and I looked and I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I remembered like the fabulous wealth she came with. She was a princess, you know, like raised with a silver spoon in her mouth. And I said to her, so Esther, how are you managing? And I was so distressed. She said, Rebbetzin, don't worry about me. I am just fine. She says, I clean homes. I said, oh, you clean homes? And I was like, she said, it's fine, it's really great. I am so happy. She says, my children are all on the derech, different shades of the derech, but all on the derech. They're happy. And she said, you know what? My children don't have an entitlement attitude. They don't have this feeling of iskumpma, like you owe me, like you're my parents. You know, you give me, you have to give me and give me and give me and give me. They see from me that I have to go, you know, that I work hard, I go out and work, and they themselves are working, they're putting themselves through school. If they want something, they know they have to work for it. She says, how much luckier can a person be to have children who understand that? So she says, I am, Ribbon Shalom, she says, is so good to me. He's so good to me that he orchestrated events such that my life took this turn. I don't know what would have been otherwise, but I have more than everything that I need. So this was, you know, then she said that, and she was, all the years she was a stay-at-home mom when she was able to be, and she said she used to think her mother before her, who stayed home, obviously she didn't need to work, her mother didn't need to work. She said she used to look down on her mother. She used to think, wow, you know, my friends' mothers are all working, and why, well, you know, how come you're not? You know, this is what she was thinking. And she says she realized that what her mother gave her when she was a stay-at-home mom, she gave her the strength to handle the life that she had to handle. Now, not knowing what the future would bring, that's why she had the strength to do what she needed to do. So in any case, whether women work outside the house, don't work, but to make the home a priority, to make her husband a priority, to make children a priority, that's the point. And you know, when you model that, I have personal stories when my parents, Zechron L'Bracha, used to come visit us in Milwaukee. So I used to prepare their favorite meals. My father, he loved stuffed cabbage and he loved chopped herring. And I used to soak the herrings and I used to make the stuffed cabbage. And as it turned out, my poor husband suffered because he hates stuffed cabbage and he hates herring. But he tolerated all. And they come, we have such a great time. Of course, my children were young at the time. And so now, talking about modeling behavior and what children take away from things. Now when I come to my daughter's home in England, you know, she's got, as a matter of fact, when we came to Eretz Yisrael, maybe a few years ago, my daughter comes from England and she brings stuffed cabbage along with her. And my other daughter brings, you know, she knows I like eggplant, she makes eggplant for me. But they saw me doing for my parents what I knew would give them pleasure, and now they follow suit. They try to figure out what it is that's going to give me pleasure. So one of the things that, speaking about Esther and the life that was handed to her after she grew up in, you know, midst plenty. So my son told me a beautiful word. He said, you know, on the mezuzah, if you look at the mezuzah, if you observe the mezuzah, and I'm sure you all know about this, that the mezuzah on the inside has the name of Hashem. The name of Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that speaks to Harchava, expansiveness. It's the word of the Mid of Hashem, that's Chesed. Chesed is like totally goodness. And then you have on the outside of the mezuzah, what do you have? What's the name of Hashem that you have on the outside of the mezuzah? I'm sorry? That's right, Shakai. The Shin Dalet Yud is the name of Hashem on the outside. And one of the Mefarshim says that when it comes to the inside, meaning the inside of the home, that it should be an expansive attitude. In other words, when it comes to the inside, the ruchnius, the inside meaning the pnimius we should address with harchava, with the name of Hashem of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that the more the better. That's what the inside of the home should be dedicated to. When it comes on the outside, when we're going into the world out there, it should be Shin Dalet Yud. What does Shin Dalet Yud, what does that name represent? It speaks about She'omar la'olamo dai. She'omar la'shin Dalet Yud, She'omar la'olamo dai. When it comes out there and it's matter and those things that the world out there would tell us are important, that the Yevanim tried to tell us are important, there we should say to that world, to the external world, to that world, we should say die. Die. Just so much and no more. That's where die should be invoked. Whereas inside the home, when it comes to ruchnius, there should be no limit to the ruchnius that we want to aspire to. So in the future, when you look at the mezuzah and you kiss that mezuzah, and you look at the word shakai, then understand that as you're walking out, that's how you address the world out there. Just so much and no more. But when you're coming into the home and you look at the mezuzah, the inside of the mezuzah speaks to Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is that midah of expansiveness, that we know that I have to strive and I have to look for, kind of try to access the best part of myself, more and more the best part of myself. So, okay, now some of the things of trying to, this transmission of a higher code. So I think that it's important to know that when it comes to mitzvahs, that we can't, all of us have this attitude, I can pick and choose which mitzvah is my favorite. I can pick and choose, like, my goodness, chas v'sholom, to eat treif wouldn't even occur to me. It wouldn't occur to me. But getting on the phone and talking to my friend, a little bit gossip, because make life a little interesting. Call up and say, hey, get a load of this. You know what's happening to that one? You know what's happening to this one? You know what she said? You know what they did and such. It's not such a terrible thing. I kind of really freaked out. I spoke in London many years ago, and to this day, it must be like 30 years ago, in high school there. And I told the girls this fact that I'm going to tell you. I met them 30 years later, and they came over to me at a wedding, and they said, do you know what you did? Yeah, I had nightmares after you told us what you told us. I said, I'm so sorry. What did I tell you? I had told them at the time that the lav inherent in Lashon Hara is like eating 34 pork chops. The lav that are included in talking Lashon Hara, bad-mouthing somebody, has 34 lav. So when we ask ourselves, we're ready to talk some Lashon Hara and kind of bad-mouth one of our friends, I think the question we have to ask us, am I prepared to sit down at the table with 34 pork chops? Am I ready to do that? And it should give us some pause. Of course, those that we've done it in the past, first, and we can do tshuva, and when we move on not to do it again, the Rebbeinu Shalom will forgive us. It doesn't work if I say, okay, I'm going to talk now and I'll do tshuva later. That doesn't work. But for that which we've done in the past, we don't have to beat ourselves up. But we need to know how grave that is, how serious it is. So to pick and choose and say, okay, kashrus, of course, Shabbos, I wouldn't think of being machal Shabbos. Lashon hara, nicht gefährlich. So we need to know that that's not, we dare not do that. Now I want to talk to you about another thing, about affirming and validating another. Now this is important for parents, and it's important for friends, it's important for siblings, and it's so important for everybody to understand what a good word can do for the other person. That somebody, you walk in wherever it is, you're in the store, you say thank you to somebody, you wish them well, and here actually in Eretz Yisrael, it's so much easier to do that. You're surrounded by Yidden. My husband went to the store the other day. He went to the Markaz for the first time. We're here a month. He went to get him a menorah. The first time he went to the Markaz, he came back. He was so excited. He said to me, you know, I was there, and everybody's Jewish. This is with the kippot sugot, and with the, you know, some that are a little more so Hasidish, Litvish, Yeshivish, everybody all together, and people coming over to him and asking him for a bracha. And it just was, he came back so excited. So certainly, when you live in this environment, and you know that everybody is yours. My father's father used to say when he came, he loved coming to Eretz, he said, you know, even the stop signs speak to me. They speak my language. It said the stones are ours. Everything is ours. So certainly in this environment, it should be so easy to smile at somebody, to wish them well, to say, I don't know, people probably think I'm crazy, but I was walking down the street by myself today, and I passed people and I greeted them, you know. I don't know if this is done, it should be done always. You can shake your head. My father was a Hasidic Rebbe. He walked down the street, and even when he saw Goyim go by, he shook his head, like acknowledging their existence. Certainly here, when you're surrounded by Yidden, everybody you could say a good word. You know, if the person at the checkout counter looks a little down, you know, give them a bracha. Say to them, have a good day. You know, it doesn't cost anything. But in this, I want to read you another piece. I'm reading a lot of pieces tonight. These are my favorites. But this one was written by a psychiatrist. She's Jewish by birth, but not so much of a practicing Jew, but she has really, really beautiful sensitivities. So she writes, on Friday afternoons, when I would arrive at my grandfather's house after school, the tea would already be set on the kitchen table. My grandfather had his own way of serving tea. There were no teacups and saucers or bowls of granulated sugar or honey. Instead, he would pour the tea directly from the silver samovar into a drinking glass. There had to be a teaspoon in the glass first, otherwise the glass being thin might break. My grandfather did not drink his tea in the same way that the parents of my friends did either. He would put a cube of sugar between his teeth and then drink the hot tea straight from his glass. Many of us remember this, that's the way our parents, grandparents used to drink tea. So would I. I much prefer drinking tea this way to the way I had to drink tea at home. After we had finished our tea, my grandfather would set 2 candles on the table and light them. Then he would have a word with God in Hebrew. Sometimes he would speak out loud, but often he would close his eyes and be quiet. I knew then that he was talking to God in his heart. I would sit and wait patiently because the best part of the week was coming. When Grandpa finished talking to God, he would turn to me and say, "Come, Neshama." Then I would stand in front of him and he would rest his hands lightly on the top of my head. He would begin by thanking God for me and for making him my grandpa. He would specifically mention my struggles during that week and tell God something about me that was true. Each week I would wait to find out what that was. If I had made mistakes during the week, he would mention my honesty in telling the truth. If I had failed, he would appreciate how hard I had tried. If I had taken even a short nap without my nightlight, he would celebrate my bravery in sleeping in the dark. Then he would give me his blessing and ask the long ago women I knew from his many stories, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, to watch over me. These few moments were the only time in my week when I felt completely safe and at rest. My family of physicians and health professionals were always struggling to learn more and to be more. It seemed there was always more to know. It was never enough. If I brought home a 98 on a test from school, my father would ask, and what happened to the other 2 points? I pursued those 2 points relentlessly through my childhood. But my grandfather did not care about such things. For him, I was already enough. And sometimes when I was with him, I knew with absolute certainty that this was so. My grandfather died when I was 7 years old. I had never lived in a world without him in it before, and it was hard for me. He had looked at me as no one else had, and called me by the special name Neshomala, which means beloved little soul. There was no one left to call me this anymore. At first I was afraid that without him to see me and tell God who I was, I might disappear. But slowly over time, I came to understand that in some mysterious way, I had learned to see myself through his eyes, and that once blessed, we are blessed forever. Excuse me. Many years later, when in her extreme old age, my mother surprisingly began to light candles and talk to God herself, I told her about these blessings and what they had meant to me. She smiled at me sadly. I have blessed you every day of your life, Rachel, she told me. I just never had the wisdom to do it out loud. So it's a very important lesson that you girls are all young, and it's how important it is to say something nice to another person. It's something you affirm them, you validate them, you uplift them, you make their day, you give them energy to be able to handle what it is that they have to handle. And of course, for mothers, not to put off the time to give our children blessings, to tell them how important they are to us, and how much we love them. So affirmations are very important. Even, okay, well, I'm not going to talk about that with the young ladies here, but I think this is one thing that's very, very critical, is that when we do want to criticize somebody, and this, my father-in-law was a master. He raised his children with this, and he wouldn't say, you're a bad boy, you're bad, whatever. He would say, mein Kind es passt nicht. My child, it's not becoming of you. So he registered his disapproval, but he left his children with their dignity intact. Basically what he was saying to them is, you're too good for this. It's passt nicht. For somebody who has so much good stuff in them, it's not becoming of you to behave this way. And I think this is something we can all, an attitude we can all adopt, whether it's with each other, and certainly when it comes to children. Celebrating differences, understanding that everybody's different. This is important for mothers raising children. It's very important for young ladies who tend to judge others who are not like themselves. And it's very important to understand that people are different. They have separate realities. And to appreciate that, I had a really great lesson in this. The lesson was that I came to here, to Ramat Beit Shemesh, and I was set up in this magnificent apartment, beautiful apartment. And I wasn't accustomed to so much dust, you know, that you have here. There's construction going on across the way. And so I said to somebody, I need a mop. In America, we have mops. I don't know if all of you know what a mop is. You know what a mop is. So, I said, I need a mop. So they said, no mops in Israel. No mops. So I was very distressed. How could there be a country without a mop? No mop in all of Israel? I asked my grandchildren in Yerushalayim, I said, please go out there and find me a mop. I had this, what do they call? That you want, the sponger. This sponger thing, I don't know what this sponger thing is. I can't get the hang of this sponger thing. I need a mop, find me a mop. When my husband went out, the one time we went out there, he comes home with this beautiful gift wrap package, and it's a mop. He found a mop. This is only a big tzaddik can accomplish that. It was one of the great miracles. The miracle of Hanukkah comes close, but not quite as great as the miracle of finding me a mop. So he found me a mop, and then I'm talking to my daughter who lived in Yerushalayim for 8 years and just recently moved back. She moved to Lakewood. And I'm talking to her on the phone, and she says to me, her husband had just come to Eretz Yisrael for Chasna, and she said to him, Shlomi, don't you dare come back without a sponger thing. She says, what are they thinking here in America? How do they use these mops and it doesn't get things clean? Only the sponger thing gets things clean. I'm listening to her and I'm saying, different strokes for different folks. Separate realities. People are different, and it's my own flesh and blood here, my daughter, and she just can't handle that. Anyway, what I wanted to also talk about is, and this is only a couple more points and I'm done, that what's very important in being able to raise good children for the mothers is the centrality of the husband. We've talked about it with Dr. Lowe, but the centrality of the husband-wife relationship. I know all of you kids would agree, there's nothing that makes children feel as secure and as happy. Nothing can serve the purpose, the same purpose as knowing that their parents are there for each other, that the relationship is intact. So if there's one thing we would do, it's focus on the husband-wife relationship. Even, ladies, I'm sorry to say this, but the husband and wife have to come before the children. Even if their children are teenagers, and even if their children are obnoxious teenagers, this husband or wife have to come first, have to concentrate on each other before anything else. And I want to end with there is also no substitute. And when we see the Neiros Hanukkah, we could look at them and see the brightness, the illumination, and the warmth that they generate. And it speaks to Simcha. Simcha in the home. And this is when the Mefarshim says a beautiful, beautiful word. And I'll end with this. The Mefarshim say that the Yavanim were out to get us. And they wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael, right? They wanted to destroy everything we believe in and promote their views, the views of Hellenism. So what mitzvahs did they target? What are the mitzvahs they targeted? Did you learn about this? Good. Bris Milah, what else? I'm sorry? Shabbos, and what else? And Chodesh. That's right. Bris Milah, Shabbos, and Chodesh are the three mitzvahs that they wanted to eradicate. And what was the idea here? These 3 mitzvahs were given before Matan Torah. Shabbos was given in Morah, that Klal Yisrael welcomed that mitzvah before Matan Torah. Mila was given to Avram Avinu, right, before Matan Torah. And Chodesh was given yet in Mitzrayim before Matan Torah. Now, what's the significance of that? The significance is that Matan Torah, as much as Klal Yisrael did say Nasa v'Nishma, but when Lamasa came to giving the Torah, Kafa Aleim Har Kegigis. The Rebbetzin Shalom held the mountain over their head. So in a sense, they were coerced. They had to. They had no choice. Im tekablu es haTorah tov ve'im lav shom tiyeh kvarascha. Hashem said, you don't keep the Torah, you're going to be buried and dropping the mountain on top of your heads. So it wasn't something that they did willingly. But these 3 mitzvahs, Shabbos given in Morah, Avram Avinu, Mila, and Chodesh, were all accepted willingly. There was no mountain hanging over their head. And the interesting thing, and this is what the Yevonim targeted, they understood that if there would be, and what is it that, look at them, Shabbos, Mila, and Chodesh, if you look at the Roshei Tevis, it spells what? Shabbos, Mila, what? Sameach. Sameach. That the purpose, the reason that they targeted this is they wanted to eradicate Simcha from the Jewish home. Because if there's no Simcha, then we all become vulnerable to the philosophy of the Yevonim. So for all of us, one of the mandates of the Yom Tov of Hanukkah, when you see the flames burning, that the thing we need to generate in our lives, and of course parents and their homes, is Simcha. Simcha, Simcha, Simcha. It's not an easy task in our day and age, because we always think about the things we don't have instead of the things we do have. And so anyway, so the point is to generate Simcha. That's the antidote. That's our response to the Yevonim. The Yevonim are still alive and well out there. The culture that we live in is very much a Hellenistic culture. And we want to counteract that. The best antidote to the Yevonim is Simcha. Simcha, Simcha, Simcha. And let's hope we do that, and the Rebbetzin Shalom will grace us with the ultimate Simcha of all and bring Mashiach to Canaan.